It might be said that dead men or women tell no tales, but in reality, victims of foul play nearly always have a story to tell when their remains are disturbed. The discovery of human bones in the Belanglo State Forest southwest of Sydney this week sent a chill down the spines of many. Could these remains belong to a victim of murderers like Ivan Milat and Bruce Burrell? Forensic science will play a crucial role. Nick Grimm reports.
It was weekend trail bike riders who stumbled across the remains. They were found just a short distance from a fire trail running through the Belanglo State Forest. But it appears they had been well concealed by dense bushland for a considerable period of time.
We are in the process of conducting a wider search in the area, as well as we continue to forensically study the specific area where the bones were found. The very early indications at this stage, which cannot be confirmed until after the results of the post-mortem, is that the remains appear at this stage to be female. However, we don't have any further details on that and can't be drawn on that further until after the results of the post-mortem. The post-mortem is likely to commence today, or will commence today, but the results of that are not likely to be known until after we conclude the investigation out at the actual crime scene itself.
As police searched the scene, speculation mounted that these could be the remains of another victim of the state's most notorious serial killer, Ivan Milat. His 7 victims were all discovered buried in an area of the Belanglo State Forest just a few kilometres away. But the former policeman who led the investigation into the backpacker murders doubts whether Ivan Milat is responsible this time.
Well, I think his name is synonymous with the Belanglo Forest, and once that's mentioned and once a body's mentioned, it's Ivan did it. But I think that the police would be taking a very thorough and a speedy approach as they could without being reckless in it. But they'll be doing it thoroughly and carefully and not jumping to conclusions.
And it seems police are not jumping to the conclusion either that these remains might be linked to another notorious murder investigation. Bruce Burrell was convicted of murdering Sydney women Kerry Whelan and Dorothy Davis, though their bodies have never been located. Burrell lived on a farm not far away from Belanglo, but police say they're conducting a methodical investigation to determine the identity of the remains. Stateline asked forensic scientist Dr. Mia Sotisno to explain how the identification process will be conducted.
My guess would be they've had the anthropological assessment to gain the race, the age, the sex of the individual, following that it was human, and then they would conduct the odontological examination and perhaps try to find any ante-mortem records, dental records that they can use to match to the deceased dentition, and then following that, if they attempt to extract some DNA, in which case to save into the database as one's prospective relation to the individual can then be tested in the future.
The processing of the actual crime scene is very meticulous. We are being very thorough. We are literally sifting through soil, basically grain by grain. Out at the location. We have a wider search being conducted by police who are trained in searching for evidence. They are literally walking along in a line form, looking at every square inch of the terrain as they go. And then, as I said, specifically in relation to the direct area where the bones were located, we are literally sifting through grains of dirt to make sure that we recover everything that may be possibly linked to this investigation.
In fact, according to Dr. Sotisno, those grains of dirt can sometimes yield an abundance of clues.
Tissue remains would come in handy if they like to assess for methods of the way they died, in which case if the person had been poisoned, in which they can conduct toxicology on those tissue remains, or they can even conduct toxicology from the surrounding soils as the body decomposes and all the acids and fluids start depleting away and then seeping into the soils. You can take examinations from that, or if there are any signs of entomological actions, meaning if there are, for example, maggots remains, but in which case, if it's already skeletonized, you're rare or unlikely to have those entomological degradations.
So what if time and the elements have left few remains apart from weathered bones? Well, even those can tell their story to investigators.
So even if these remains have been in the bush for a long period of time, there is quite a lot of information that can be obtained from them.
Yes, provided the bones are complete, or the skull, the cranium, the mandible, as well as the rest of the postcranial skeleton, we can assess a lot of information from them. From the actual skull itself, we can actually deduce whether it's Asian, Caucasian, or Aboriginal, and we can say whether it's a male or a female, and the age. From assessing either the dentition or areas where there could be atrophies, meaning wear and tear, as well as osteoporosis, any signs of that.
And when all else fails, there are other methods too of determining the identity of bones left to lie in the bush for years. That's when experts like Mia Tisno are required. She specialises in facial reconstructions and the process of matching photographic images to faces. She can be called in by police keen to confirm the identity of offenders captured on security cameras, or she might be asked to determine whether a skull fits a particular face.
So, Dr. Satisno, under what circumstances would you be likely to be called into a case like this?
Most likely when the police have come into a standstill, where they have no idea who the person is, and in which case they can approach me for a facial reconstruction, and once we have a face that we can put to the media and then release to the public in the hope that someone would recognise that person. Or alternatively, if again the police have an idea, but and this time they have a photograph but still not sure whether or not it is that person, then I would be called in to perform a photo superimposition.
Facial superimposition was the process used to identify remains found near Grenfell in the state's central west 5 years ago and helped solve a 70-year-old mystery. In that case, Dr. Satisno was able to confirm they were the remains of a local farmer, Harry Lavers. Whether processes like that will be required to identify the remains found at Belanglo is still to be seen. There have been unconfirmed reports that police have located a clump of human hair at the scene.
That definitely would be useful. Again, you can conduct DNA testing on the hair. You can even conduct toxicology on the hair as well. And of course, for facial reconstruction and superimposition, it gives you more clues as to what the person originally looked like during their living years.